This is On the Road with Dr. Brian King. Sarah Bonger, my co-host for this episode and most episodes, let's be honest. We're here in, where are we?
We are in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere. Blues, women, and blues. I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere. I'm an asshole.
We're here in a recording studio. This is a studio owned by one of the founding members of a group called Overlord. And we are lucky enough to be able to sit down with them and talk with them. There's many members of the band, so I'm going to let them introduce themselves. But let's start off with Wild Man George. How you doing, George?
I'm doing well. I'm Wild Man George Kerber. And we're now Overlord SR. We were Overlord.
Yeah, that's right. So,
but still, people still call us around the world Overlord.
You were one of the founding members of the band, right?
Correct.
And what's with the name change?
Well, let's get into that. It was Overlord with an E. It was kind of a cool story. I always wanted the name, but we were writing on a big legal pad, you know how long they are, and we had all these names, and nobody could agree with the name, but I wanted Overlord.
All right.
And the E is the original Old English spelling. The E denounces the Lord, so you're not saying over God.
Right.
So this guitar player we had at the time, he had a big Webster's dictionary. Well, I'm not kidding. It was this thick. It was big. It had its own spinning table, and I picked it up and dropped it on. He had like a big coffee table that was made of a stump or a tree stump. I dropped it on that. Falls open. I put my finger down, and I said, "Hey, what are we called? Chrysanthemum? What is the name?" And he looks down. He says, "Oh my God!" And I go, "What?" He goes, "Look," and it was Overlord.
You're kidding?
Wow.
No,
Wow. That is
so we took the name, and it was the Old English spelling. Gave us the definition. So we took that, went with it. We got signed to Metal Blade in 1986. Was on Metal Massacre 8 with the song Keeper of the Flame. Heard around the world everywhere. So, in the 80s I said, well, we should trademark the name. But I called lawyers here in the 80s, and they were wanting exuberant amounts of money to trademark the name. We just
There's
didn't
no
have
legal
it.
zoom back then.
Yeah, there's no legal zoom, that's right. So I said, yeah, man, we're on Metal Blade. They were a big label under Capitol Records, so we didn't worry about it. Well, in 2001, a band out of New Jersey, a three-piece band. We've always been a two-guitar, five-member band. They're a four-member band, lead singer, and they trademarked our name in 2001.
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
And when we came back out in the 2000s, when we got re-signed with Heaven and Hell Records and was putting out our old catalog on Medieval Metal 2, they were getting, you guys got to cease and desist. We're Overlord. We got it trademarked and all this kind of thing. And
Wow.
And we were like, so we said, you know what? In the South, every time we booked somewhere, they would come, "You Overlordies!" And we were like, no, it's Overlord. Or I'm not kidding you. They'd be like, "Tonight, Sabotage and Metal Blade recording artist Warlord." What? Or Overload. Or Overloud.
I like Overload.
Or the Overlords.
Or the Overlords.
And the Overlords.
We played one place. I don't know if you remember, but on
You could be
Ramsey
like Wild Man and the Overlords.
No, King Hambone and the Bologna Sandwich.
There you go.
So we were playing over on Ramsey Street at Baby Blues, and they had Tonight, Metal Blade recording artist Overlord. Across the street was this little church, and they actually put on their sign. We were at the McDonald's eating, and we watched the guy putting the letters up there, and it said, "Jesus is Lord over Fayetteville." We were like, oh man, I want to run across the street and change it to Jesus loves Overlord. And they said, no, don't do that. I'm like, okay, I won't do that. So we changed it to Overlord Sovereign Reign, or Overlord SR. We dropped the E, so we're a drop E band, and now people pronounce it. They go, "Oh, Overlord," and I'm like, "Yeah, not Overlord E." you know. And
You left out overloud, overkill.
that's right. I mean, we've been called everything, and I'd send them packets, and still we get there and they'd have. I mean, my favorite one was Tonight Warlord, and I'm like, can you get the Lord? Where did you get the war part?
Yeah.
But Warlord's a big time band. We were like, maybe we should play as Warlord. Yeah. But no, we wouldn't want to do that. That's the thing, you know. We couldn't believe that. They went and played a big festival over in Germany, and I've contacted Oliver several times about did they ever misrepresent themselves as us? Because we had that song Keeper of the Flame. And I know that a promoter would probably go, oh, you playing Keeper of the Flame? Then that's your big song. And they probably say, oh, we don't play that song anymore. They never played that song, ever. You know?
Yeah.
So we don't know. We never found out that ever happened. We don't know. It's conjecture, you know, but whatever.
Two different styles of
Yeah, it's
metal,
two different.
actually.
They're more
Yeah,
progressive.
they're more progressive.
Yeah,
just old
we're
school.
traditional new. We've always been called new wave or British heavy metal. And when I called up Brian Slagle of Metal Blade and thanked him, he got on the phone. He goes, "George, where's your British accent?"
Oh, yeah.
I go, "British accent? What?" He goes, "Yeah, we thought you came over from Britain and recorded in North Carolina." I go, "Would that be cheaper than just recording in Britain?" What? And he goes, "Well, then you're from North Carolina?" I said, "Yeah, I grew up here." He says, "Well, where's your southern accent?" So I get on the phone and I'm like going, "Well, mate, we can go over to bloody England and play for you. Or heck, Furbo, we'll come out there to California and play for you, metal bladers." And he's like, "Don't do that." I'm like, "Okay, but what are you talking about?" He said, "You have a neutral accent." I said, "Well, my mom's from Germany. I'm from Germany. My dad's from Ohio. I just never got a
Right, that's
southern
what happens when you've been many
Happens,
places.
yeah.
Yeah.
Around.
Yeah, you just.
Yeah.
Let's get the rest of the band introduced here
This
really
is
quick.
Steve Sosa, our lead singer, right here.
Thank
He's
you.
one of the original members.
Thank you for that
Okay,
introduction,
so you were an Overlordy, and then and now you're Overlord SR. Excellent.
Overlordy over 40 for sure. Overlord. Yes, that's right.
That's nice. Who else we got?
I'm Craig Dunham. I joined the band a few years after it was formed. I joined in early '88, and so.
And you're the gesture, you're the...
Other guitar player.
Yeah, I play the other guitar player.
The other guitar player. There's two of us.
All right, man.
We share duties on,
That's right.
on rhythm and lead. It's pretty balanced.
Now, Craig is great with dates and numbers.
Ah.
He doesn't have to use his cell phone to call. He can just dial your number.
Wow.
He doesn't.
That's
He
awesome.
doesn't need to go. Where's George? He just dialed my number and go boom.
I used to be
But
like
he can.
that. Yeah.
He can remember every
That's
show we've
good
ever
stuff.
played. When we first met. I mean, he has all that out
Yeah,
there.
that is impressive. Yeah.
It is.
It's-
When was it you joined the band?
Well, it was like I think like February 21st or something like
See,
that.
February 21st, 1988. I'm gonna look that up.
Something like
It was
that.
a Wednesday.
It was right around there, right in the third week of February.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, cool. And obviously, they've kept you around for a while. 88 to now.
Yeah.
And finally, we have the drummer over here.
Yeah, I'm David Pop Pop Morris. I joined the band just a few years ago,
Mm-hmm.
towards the end of 2019, early 2020.
All right.
And, so been with them since, and I'm on the new album
Awesome.
as the current drummer. And many years ago, when they first started playing, I used to go see them play.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
That's kind of cool.
it's a full circle of not only watching them when they came out, but now I perform with them.
That's awesome.
So
That's
that's
right.
really cool
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Well, that's how Steve and I met.
Oh, yeah?
Uh-huh.
Back in the 70s, Steve was in a cover band called Fantasy with our original bass player, Daryl Collins. He's one of the founding members. And they were playing, and Daryl took me when I was 15 out to Parkton to go see them play. And I met Steve, and then when that band kind of, fell apart and everything, and we morphed into Reagan with a different singer, and then in 1980, I just said, you know what? about 80, 81, I said, Daryl, we got to quit playing covers. We got to write our own songs. This is what we got to do. And he said, well, who we going to get? He said, let's get Steve.
So, Fayetteville. Fayetteville is not a city that's well known for music. Has Fayetteville influenced your the band's growth, development?
Well, a
it's
lot
got-
of the musicians have come out of Fayetteville.
Oh, yeah?
There's been a lot of big name artists that have played here. That old
Yeah.
club, the Flaming Mug, it's called the Cadillac Ranch now. I've seen Frampton and Robert Trower, Kansas, Blue Oyster Cult,
Vixen.
Pat Travers, Foghat. There's so many people at that
No.
little club.
But they
It's
played out
different
in the
now.
arena.
It's like a country music club now. But,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of musicians that have come. Jimmy Herring is a pretty famous guitar player that plays with Widespread Panic. And he's from Fayetteville.
I love that there are these pockets of creativity that
People don't know about
talk
the
about
nation,
a lot,
yeah,
and I think
yeah.
that's one of the things. Like, we've interviewed a lot of people in Fayetteville, and it's a scene that does people don't think of. People if you're out in California or anywhere really, it's like it doesn't come to mind. So I think that's really cool that there is a presence here.
But the problem with Fayetteville also for doing metal is you're deep in the Bible Belt here.
Right.
And metal is like metal. Oh, let's sweep that under the rug.
Yeah.
Don't talk about it. And it's hard to play here because we always had to make our own scene, even back then and now today. I mean, there's no scene for original music here. It's all cover bands or tribute
Right, yeah.
band.
Yeah,
And to me, it's a glorified cover. They just do one band, so tribute band. And there's tons of those. But original music, and there's some great original metal bands in this town that are out doing things besides us, but nobody knows of them because you can't play here. I mean, there's just nowhere to play.
It is almost like censorship to an extent here
Right.
in Fayetteville. It's they got the blue hairs are in control. And when you think that they're going away, a whole new batch just pops right out of the pawpaw patch.
You can't play that heavy metal music.
But isn't that like part of the rise and the energy?
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
There's
like
that-
keep your rebellion going.
It is, but it's hard to rebel when nobody will come out because they're being squashed with like a big hammer, like that whack-a-mole kid.
I grew up listening to heavy metal. I was a child of the 70s, as we talked a little bit earlier about liking some of the same bands. I mean, my favorite band growing up was Kiss. My first concert was Kiss, but Iron Maiden. I was a product of that era. Would you say, what are some of your influences?
Well, I listen to lots of different kinds of music, a lot of progressive rock and hard rock and stuff. But I mean, there's I could go on and on. You get me talking about bands and guitar players and stuff. But I like, somebody that I always forget to talk about is one of the founding members of Kansas, Kerry Livgren, who, he wrote great progressive rock, but it was hard rock. They were hard, but it was very progressive. I love Rush and Led Zeppelin and Hendrix and Jethro Tull and Yes and all the heavy stuff too, Iron Maiden, and Metallica and all that, Black Sabbath, UFO, Michael Schenker, stuff like
Judas
that.
Priest.
Yeah, it just goes on and on. I can sit here and then get done and walk out the door and be like, damn, I forgot to say da 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 da. There's so many.
Yeah.
But on the way here, I was thinking about the band Kansas because and you don't associate Kansas with like metal or whatever, but their songwriting is something that I really like. It's very well thought out, melodic music, but it still has a hard edge. Still got really good guitar playing and stuff, but it's it's just well constructed music.
There's that steal like an artist too, right? Everybody borrows from everybody. Everybody's
Oh, yeah,
influenced by everybody, and
Yeah. And there's lots of, I love, like Pink Floyd and Beatles and stuff like that. There's a lot of great classic rock, and I listen to classical music and jazz and blues, all kinds of stuff. But as far as what I like to play, what we play in the band is, that's what I really like. And as far as what's influenced that for me is just classic hard rock, like UFO, Michael Schenker, and that kind of stuff. Ozzy, Black Sabbath,
Sure.
Deep Purple. that kind of stuff, Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
So
I think that's the first really, what I considered where it was turning to metal would have been like Zeppelin, Sabbath.
yeah,
Of course,
especially Sabbath.
John Kay
Yeah.
coined the phrase, heavy metal thunder
Yeah.
and Born to Be Wild.
Yeah.
But Steppenwolf, I was always
Oh,
a big
yeah,
Steppenwolf
that's
fan.
right.
And I think he was just talking about motorcycles.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And it's like heavy metal in. Of course, AC/DC goes way back.
Oh, I know, 70s.
Yeah.
Daryl was importing, our bass player was importing original AC/DC albums from Australia. He was like, George, you gotta listen to this. And it was. I'm like, man, this is cool. What is it? AC/DC. So we were at in Fantasy, we played one of their songs called Livewire at the Shade Tree Jam for Fayetteville Technical Institute out there, way out in the middle of nowhere, but there was hundreds of people out there, and they came up to us, man, what's that song, Livewire? Is that an original? No, it's AC/DC. And they go, AC who? I go, oh, you heard about them. You heard about them, okay? It's like 1977, 78, we're like,
they're
growing up as a kid, I mean, I like the Beatles and I like the Stones, and I grew up in the 60s and the 70s, but in my head, I kept thinking, there's this heavier sound that I want, that I'm not getting. And people say, what about Zeppelin? I said, oh, it's there, but it's not there yet. And then I heard Driving Wheel by Foghat. And I heard that one day and I went, oh man, that's getting there. That's almost it, and I remember hearing UFO and I was like, oh, this is it. This is it. Then I heard the Scorpions, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. And then Judas Priest, like, this is the music we're going to play. This is it.
That's what I really liked about Sabbath, though, because even in '71, Master of Reality is just heavy.
Yeah.
But then it's got these soft, beautiful songs like Solitude and Orchid. But there's a song like Into the Void or Lord of this World. There's nothing to me. There's just
Well, the song that got
This
me
is
into
nothing
Sabbath was
heavier
Sabbath,
than that.
Bloody Sabbath.
yeah, that's great.
I was a kid on the bus,
Yeah.
and the older kids were in the back with a big old jam box,
Yeah.
and I'm standing in the aisle because there's no room to sit because of where I got on the bus. It was last, So I'm sitting there, with my books and
Stuff
stuff.
short bus.
Yeah, with the I was looking in the window. And all of a sudden I hear this. I'm like, oh, what is that?
That's
I was like, man, that is cool. That is just heavy. David, who were your influences?
Well, I was a teenager in the 80s, so I listened to Maiden and Priest and Dio, and obviously
Yeah.
Black Sabbath was still being played, and you had the Scorpions, and then Metallica came along, and then you had the hair metal bands with the Motley Crue, or the Motley Crue, and Poison, and Warrant, and so
Skid Row.
Skid Row. So it was a big influence of the 80s of metal. And it was just multiples of metal. It wasn't just one style of metal. So that's how I got into being a drummer.
Yeah.
I heard that and I wanted to get a drum set. And, I've had 10 drum sets over the past 30 some years, and I own 5 right now. So
Yeah, we got
yeah,
5 drums.
I have 5 drum
Have you
sets.
learned to play any of them?
Listen to the album. It will prove the point.
Now you're the newest member of the band right now. Were you always a metal musician? I know you're always a metal fan, but you're always a metal musician.
In fact, I've always been a cover band drummer, and usually was the leader of the band. I got the band together, I managed the band, I set things up for the band, and when I had the opportunity to join Overlord and be in an original music band, it was totally different from what I was used to. So you had, and some of the songs were already set, but then again, some of the songs have my influence put into them, my flavor of how I want to play them. So it's totally different from what I started out as many years ago. So I feel comfortable now. At first I wasn't so comfortable because it was something totally different.
Sure.
But I've always been in the realm of being a metal drummer, and now I feel like I'm in that family.
Cool.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Who writes all the songs?
I come up with a lot of the music, then I bring it to Steve, and then we come up with some kind of, it's kind of funny, once you get a song written, the words and the title are kind of in there, you just kind of have to listen to it, and then Steve will go, "Oh, we should write about this." Great, and he'll start writing down. He'll get all these ideas. He starts writing them down, and then he'll come up with them, and then we kind of put it together, and then we bring it to the band, and then everybody else. It's like a bunch of cooks in the kitchen. Everybody starts putting in their. You're making chocolate chip cookies, and then some guy goes, "Hey, we need some nuts."
It's pretty organic because you'll come
Yeah.
up with an idea,
Sure.
and then I'll do a little harmony bit or come up with a
Right.
bridge or an ending or the all the little
That's what's great.
Kinda
little
like-
melodic
Kinda like
harmonic parts and stuff. But it's
Never know what
it's
you're
an
gonna
interesting process,
Yeah.
Play-Doh.
So it's a little bit more collaborative than just
Right.
one person
Well,
writes
that's
a
what's great
song.
about a band. That's my biggest problem with individual artists. An individual artist will have these team of songwriters, and they'll write all these songs, and they'll come in and they'll go sing like this, and you're like, ah, then they go,
Right.
and then they put all these effects and musicians behind it, and it's them. But a collaborator thing, it's great because you can come up and they'll go, "Oh, right here we should go left," and everybody goes, "Ah,"
Yeah, yeah.
and we're all going left, but it's great. 'Cause then that's a different direction in the song, and you might not have come up with that by
Right.
yourself, but a collaborator there, or Steve will come up. "There's too much music right here. I need more room to sing," and you'll go, "Okay," so we dumb it down and we go, "Okay, we'll
Sorry,
just
I'm
hit a
laughing because I'm
chord."
thinking too much cowbell. That's terrible.
There's too much cowbell. I need more cowbell. That Saturday Night Live bit is the best.
It's
I
so
never really noticed the cowbell
Until
until the
that's-
Reaper,
until that-
until
yeah,
that
yeah,
thing came out, and now I can't not hear it.
Yeah, that's all I hear when I hear that song. It's like,
Steve, tell them your story when you went and go see the Guess Who.
Well, we were asking for tickets. They said, "Well, who are you going to see?" I said, "Guess Who?" And they were like, "Who?" I said, "The Guess Who?" And they're like, "Come on, like, look, this is just getting old," because they went several times.
Yeah,
Like who's
yeah,
up
yeah.
first?
Yeah, yeah. And I said, "That's the name of the band, the Guess Who." And they're like, "Oh, okay. Go to the show." Your decision.
yeah, I've always been a fan of the genre. I don't follow it as closely. So my next question might seem kind of I don't know, like uninformed, but what's metal like nowadays? What's the metal scene?
Well, like I said, we're new wave of British heavy metal, which Priest, Maiden, Saxon, those guys all fit under that. So we're in that category, okay? But there's so many genres of metal. There's new metal and hardcore metal and
Death metal.
and death metal and
Oh, yeah,
speed
the
and
metalcore.
thrash metal,
Black-
metalcore.
Yeah.
So there are all these different genres, but like today's metal, and I love the phrase Cookie Monster vocals. Because it sounded like if Cookie Monster from Sesame Street was to have a band, I want cookies with chocolate chips.
That's more black metal or death metal.
Death metal, yeah.
There's some good heavy bands out there,
Yeah.
like Disturbed and
Five Finger Death Punch.
Yeah, there's some other metal bands that are heavy that are they're not really. I don't know what you'd really call that genre. It's probably just
Modern metal or something.
Well, Steve coined a great phrase, and I like it. He said, because when we play a lot of these festivals, a lot of the bands start sounding the same. Like it's almost like they went and changed outfits and came back out and, "Hey, we're this band now," and because it all sounds the same. And he said it sounds like clone metal. Because it's almost like they're like going, "Ooh, that's selling, so we'll sound like that,"
Yeah.
And
If
we
that
don't-
catches on as a genre, we're all gonna blame you.
you still got Maiden out there, Megadeth, and Iron Maiden, and there's still
Saxon.
there's still a lot of those classic kind of bands
They've
out
all
there.
come out with albums this past year, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just a lot of great bands, and then to me, the industry has gotten flooded because we're on a lot of these festivals and we see a lot of these bands, and a lot of the bands out there, I wish people, if you're friends with a band and if they're really good, then tell them they're really good. But if they're really crappy, tell them they're really crappy because they won't get better.
Yeah.
That's what our closest friends and family, they'll let us know the mistakes if, because nobody else will catch them. We know where they were. If, one of us couldn't hit a note singing or whatever, and they'll come up and go, oh yeah, you missed that harmony, and I go, yeah, I was out of water, something, but that's good because that means they're paying attention. Don't just come up to them and go, oh yeah, you guys were great, because then you can't get better.
And
You know what I
here's
mean?
your fake trophy made out of plastic.
That's right. Here it is. Here's my participation.
Your participation.
Yeah, exactly. That's the biggest problem. It's like, no, tell them. I mean, one of my best friends in the world, Mark Boss, when I was growing up, and I wanted to do the lick that Ace Frehley does, and it was doodle diddle doodle diddle doodle diddle doodle, and he goes doodle doodle doodle, and I couldn't do it. And he goes, you suck. Till you can play that lick, you suck. So I'd be sitting in my bedroom on a I was slowing down the record. We had records. We didn't have a guy on YouTube going, here's how you play the Ace Frehley lick. Boo doo 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 da boo. I'm showing you right where to play it and everything. No man, we had to slow the record down with your thumb and make it go. And you were like figuring it out. Then you would go, you know why we went to concerts? I went to concerts to get in the front row so I could see where they were playing this part. So I wanted to make sure that if Ted Nugent was playing Snakeskin Cowboys, he was playing the B up here, not up here or down here. I wanted to make sure I was learning it in the same place he was doing it. And then when he played the solo, I wanted to see how he was doing it. So I memorized all that because we didn't have cameras. We couldn't take pictures of the whole concert.
So I want to talk a little bit about your current career, what you guys are doing, what you're going to be doing in the future. So if we can just get a feel for. I know we're interrupting your rehearsal, and I feel bad for that because it's your time. But so what are you guys working on currently?
Well, we're playing live for the new album, Prepare for the King, which is on Exodus Stratagem Records. It's out there. It's 7 songs, and we're promoting that, and we're writing songs now, and we're starting to work on them. And that's what happens when you get creative. You start writing, and then you get together and. People don't understand. People think you just write songs and go in the studio and record them, and no, it takes time.
Yeah.
Right,
Sometimes a song will take 6-7 months to come along,
And we have to keep playing them often.
And if we don't like them,
you got to keep on top of them, otherwise they'll get a little rusty. So you got to keep playing them, and as you're working on new stuff. Keep
new stuff. If we don't like it. If we don't like it, we'll take the song. Because I remember Van Halen telling me, he said, if you don't like a song, then your audience is not going to like the song. So if you don't like playing it, you need to like playing it. And he said, then your friends will like it, then their friends will tell their friends. And he said, then you have a fan base. And I always remember that after meeting him. So if we come in here and we write a song and it's just not gelling, we'll take it, put it on the back burner, let it simmer over there for a little bit. We'll turn it down so it don't burn, but we're gonna let it simmer. And we've come back to songs 6 months later and taken a piece out of that song and then a piece from a new song we just wrote, and then they go like this, and it's like the peanut butter and chocolate, Reese's.
Yeah, I have jokes that work that same way. You start telling a joke, it's not working properly, and then you tell another joke, and then you just know it one night, you just put them together, and it kind of works.
Right.
So but also with the practice element too. People don't realize, they think comedy. It's like, you tell a joke, and once you know the joke, you can tell it repeatedly. But if I haven't told a joke in a couple of months, I'm gonna screw it up. I don't even know why. I bring it on stage.
It's like that with music. If you don't play it regularly, even though it's something you wrote, something that you're familiar with, you got to stay on top of it.
You gotta knock the rust off.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Nothing worse than rusty metal.
Right.
Step on a nail.
Be like the Tin Man.
Get some
How can people find you online to learn more about the band?
www.overlordsr.com. We're on Spotify, iHeart, Deezer, iTunes, Pandora, Google for streaming. And then you can get us on our YouTube channel, which is, Overlord SR YouTube. You can subscribe, which we'd like to have. You ask people to subscribe, they think they're having to write out a prescription or something. Aspirin or whatever. If they like your band, they'll subscribe.
It's tough. Yeah, so they find you on all sorts of platforms.
Facebook,
Facebook,
and Twitter, Instagram. On Instagram, we're known as the Band of Armor, and then Overlord SR pops up because we wear.
Was Overlord SR
Leather
already
armor.
taken, or is
Yeah, we were leather.
No, I wanted to put that because it kind of sets us apart from other metal bands
Ah.
because we actually wear leather armor. So Band of Armor kind of steps us into another realm.
it? Any more questions, Sarah?
No. I'm glad I know more about metal than I thought I did. I'm terrible, so I was a little worried coming here because I'm like, I know I listened to all this stuff growing up, and I dated people who did, and all this. I just don't remember. I don't have your memory for any pop culture at all. But then you start talking, I'm like, oh yeah, I know this and that and the next thing. Yeah.
Thank you so much for
you
indulging
very
us in
much.
this little
Appreciate it.
podcast.
Prepare for the Brian King. It's prepare for the King.
Oh, that's good.
Prepare for Brian.
That's right.
King.
And look for that new album. When's it coming out?
Well, the CD is out now, and you can get that at our store on overlordsr.com. But the album has been pushed to like January. We're just waiting on it because
Well, the war in Ukraine or whatever. I think
Yeah.
you said something. It's COVID, the war in Ukraine. It's always something. So.
remember, it's a petroleum byproduct. Vinyl.
That's right.
I love the way vinyls. I mean,
Yeah.
it's got its own smell and its own sound.
I'm talking about something tangible.
Right.
All right, well, folks, that has been another episode of On the Road with Dr. Brian.
And Sarah.
Thank you.
Change of the title. Thanks for watching, listening.
I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere. Blues, women, and blues. I'm here,